Hello again. This time we're going to be making the body, so let's get to it. So for the body, I'm going to go for a sort of freestyle approach. This is probably the fastest way to get a body, but it's probably not going to give you the same quality of result as retopologizing a high poly mesh would. I think it's also not super beginner friendly because you have to think about the 3D shape of your model, but you at the same time you have to think about the topology. So if you're struggling with either of these, it's going to be difficult to get a good result. So if you are a beginner, I would recommend making a high poly sculpt, so that way you don't have to worry about the topology immediately and then retopologizing. This is going to take much more time than this method that I'm showing you here, but it should be much simpler to wrap your head around. But anyway, I'm going to link a video by Dicko again. He basically does the same thing as I'm going to do here, and he probably explains it much better than me. So please go watch that if you are following along. But yeah, to start off with, we just want to block out the basic shape of the body, starting from the torso. As always, keep the loops low at this stage. We're gonna add detail later where we need it. There are no real tips that I could give you here, in my opinion. I think this part is all about anatomy. If your command of anatomy is weak, then you might want to rely on some references. For me personally, I don't really feel like I need it. But yeah, don't worry about the details at this stage. Just get the blocky big shapes. Once the big shapes are in, then starts the tricky part. We're going to have to go back and use the knife tool to mold the topology to the correct shape. So just like the face, you want the loops to be either perpendicular or tangent to the deformation. And wherever you want details, you want to have a circular loop encircling the detail. But yeah, if you're making a girl character like me, the female body is very smooth, so honestly, the whole process is very simple. For the most part, you just want a mesh of even quads that go along with the deformations. By the way, one thing that bears repeating, just like in the face, don't worry about the shape immediately, worry about the topology, because you can always fix the shape if you have the correct topology. It's really difficult to fix the topology even if you have the correct shape, but fixing the shape when you have the correct topology is much, much simpler. Now, the first challenge of topology in the body that you're bound to encounter is the shoulder. This is actually the most complex part of the body, in my opinion, excluding the hands and the feet. You can go for a naive loop structure here and get decent results. I've done it in the past, but why not try to do things properly for a change? So I'm going to link you a video here by CG Cookie that actually goes into great detail on correct shoulder anatomy. And I think pretty much if you follow this video, you're going to be fine. But anyway, I'm not going to show you the whole process. It's just a lot of moving the verts around, like looking at the loops, making sure that they're the way I want them to be. And frankly, I don't think that I'm qualified to teach on this subject. But anyway, let me show you what I came up with. So we have this loop here that goes across the chest, like so. That's the first loop that goes into the shoulder. Then we have the next loop goes under the chest. So that's the loop that I talked about in the face video. I don't know if this actually helps, to be completely honest with you. In this case, it definitely helps if you have a male character, so the chest is not so far down. But yeah, I wanted to include this. Then we have this, which is the same thing basically. I just subdivided it a little bit to have a bit more geometry in the shoulder. And then the next loop is this. So I'm not sure if this is a good idea. I was thinking about like having the loop go basically not double back onto the shoulder and go onto the arm here, but I'm trying this kind of loop structure right now. If it has any problems, I'll go back and change it. But yeah, this is my shoulder. You'll see as I go along, I'm slowly building out the shape of the body by hopping into sculpt mode every now and then and adding in details such as the belly button. One extremely important loop to have in your model is the loop that goes from the crotch to the tip of the pelvis. So it kind of follows the bikini line. This is extremely important for leg deformations, or I guess for pelvic deformations when the leg raises. You'll see it right away if you don't have this, that your mesh is just going to collapse in on itself. At this point, I think I'm going to give you some general tips. So one tip I want to give is for the leg. Uh, Looking from the front, you should have a sort of zigzag pattern going. That'll look good. So the thigh you want to go inward slightly. The knee you want to go outward, and then the calf you want to go inward again. Don't overdo it, but this will make your leg look natural. Another thing I see really often actually is when some people make thin characters, they make the thighs concave. And I don't understand how you could possibly come to the conclusion that thighs could be concave, but uh, even if you're making a thin character, make sure to keep the thighs at the very least straight. Like you should probably have a little bit of outwards bend on them. Definitely don't make them concave. That looks super, super weird. For the arms, I would suggest adding a little bit of mass. There is a temptation with girl characters to make the arms like really skinny, and that's fine and all, but realistically, there should be like a little bit of meat on the bones, right? So don't overdo it with the skinny arms. One really important topic that I haven't discussed yet is the topology of joints. I'm not really an expert on the topic, but I'm going to link you another video on the subject, and you can see what kind of joints you like. The most important thing is that you're aware, because if you don't pay any attention to this, then your joint deformations are going to be absolutely horrible, and you're going to hate your model. All right, now it's finally time to add the booba. As you may have noticed from the reference for this character is actually quite well endowed. Um, what can I say? Neuron activation. I decided that it would be simplest to make the boobs a separate object and then merge it back together. If your character has small boobs, you probably don't need to worry about this, but my character has quite large boobs, so it's a little bit of a problem. One tip that I have on modeling boobs is make sure you remember gravity exists. So one thing I see a lot of people doing is they just like make them perpendicular almost to the torso, which doesn't make any sense. Like the heavier the boob is, the lower it's going to sag just due to gravity. So keep that in mind. Like I know you like firm boobs, but you gotta have some realism, otherwise they're just going to look like balloons. Okay, so at this point, I think we can move on to the hands. Uh, the hands are arguably the second most complex part of the body after the face. So let's see if we can break this down. To be honest, I'm never quite happy with the hands that I make, but topologically speaking, they should be like relatively decent. Copium. However, if you want to do things properly, I'm going to link you a video by Dicko again on hands, and that should help you get started. So yeah, my method is very similar to Dicko's. I basically start with the palm and I extrude out the fingers, find the general landmarks of the fingers, uh, add some more geometry, and just sculpt the basic shape of the hand. The important loop structures in the hand to keep in mind are each finger has a joint at each knuckle, and then you want a loop, generally speaking, that goes around the finger where the fingers meet with the palm. Depending on the level of realism, you might want a area of detail around each knuckle and probably even extending to the tendons that go to each knuckle. Then on the palm side of things, there's a lot you can model in. I think the basic shapes you want to get in are the mass that is attached to the thumb and the mass that is right under the pinky, which is like this rectangular shape. And then you might want also the mass that is under the fingers, which runs parallel to the palm. And then also you might want some creases to model in some creases where the hand folds. It really like it's a lot up to personal preference what you want to model in and what you want to fake with textures and what you don't want to have represented in your hand at all. So mostly I just want you to be aware of these things and like make your own decisions. This is I cannot stress enough that this is not a tutorial. And one last thing I want to mention is that the palm actually has like a natural bend to it. So it's not just a box. So if your hand looks really flat and you don't understand why, and this might be the reason why. So make sure when you start modeling, give that palm the natural bend that it has. One thing I forgot to mention and do, as a matter of fact, is that when you add geometry to the fingers, you should probably collapse the edge loops as they get to the palm, because you don't want all that detail traveling up the arm. But yeah, this is the kind of topology that I ended up with. Um, I have a little bit of everything. I have the mass in the thumb. I have the mass under the pinky, the mass that goes across the palm. I have one fold for the arm. I have a little bit of a definition around the tendons. I have a little bit of definition around the knuckles. Uh, I have a loop that goes around each knuckle of the fingers. And now all that's left to do is just to pop into sculpt mode and get the final shape of the hand. Before you do this, you might want to copy the hand, just in case you mess up, you have a copy of the correct topology. One tip that I have to give here is even if you're making a girl character, make sure that the fingers are not too thin. I see a lot of people that are recommending to thin the fingers as you get to the tip, even though it's not realistic because it looks the hands look more feminine. Like, I mean, that might be true up to a degree, but in my mind, it looks so ugly when you curl the fingers and it doesn't actually cover the palm. Because if you curl your fingers, you'll see that they pretty much cover the palm, right? And if you start thinning them, then that's not going to be true anymore. You're going to have these ugly gaps between the fingers, and that honestly offsets any kind of benefit you get from making the hands look more feminine, quote unquote. But yeah, once you're happy with the hand, just merge it to the rest of the body, and we can continue on. So next, I'm going to merge the head to the torso, which I didn't do immediately because it's a little bit of an annoying process. Normally it wouldn't be, but because I want to model in the clavicle, there's a little bit of problem solving involved. So yeah, I just went with the knife tool and I extruded the clavicle basically. Nothing too fancy there, but the real problem is what that does to the loop structure of the mesh and having to fix that. One thing I haven't really talked about in this series is the quad rule, which is that your mesh should be entirely made out of quads. Uh, I don't think this is actually necessary if all you care about is deformations, especially within Blender. Like certainly quads are nice when you subdivide your model. It gives you nicer geometry, and tries can give you artifacts. That's true. But if you have a try here or there, if you're just a hobbyist, I mean, it's completely fine to be honest. But anyway, if you do want to be proper, quote unquote, and avoid all tries, then one thing that can help you out in these situations where you use the knife tool and you redirect the edge flow is just triangulate the area that has the try in it and like basically dissolve the edges that make it so that the edge flows in the direction that you want, right? So I don't know. It's not a foolproof method, of course, but it might give you a different perspective on the problem and help you like find the path that you need. But anyway, the final thing for this video is the feet. So let's see what we can do there. So yeah, I don't really know what to tell you about the feet. I am not a feet guy. To be honest, if I didn't have feet, I wouldn't know feet existed. Like that's my level of involvement with feet. I would say probably use reference. Like if you care about feet at all, you care too much for me to be able to teach you anything. Topologically speaking, the feet are very similar to the hand. So similar, in fact, that I treated them exactly the same. So I tried to extrude 4 toes, and I completely forgot that there are 5 toes. And so I had to make a bootleg correction and extrude the side faces of the foot. So now my foot has a scuffed topology for life, but I just don't care. So that's how much I care about feet, and that's really why you should not be listening to anything I say about feet. But yeah, as soon as the feet are merged, we're done for this video. So I hope you followed along. Um, just to as a reminder that there's actually like I'm not filming everything that I do necessarily. Like there's a lot of micro adjusting that I do in between clips. So if you're following along and you feel like your model is just not coming along or is taking 4 times as long, like don't be discouraged. It just like modeling does take a lot of time, especially if you're not like a professional. I don't know what the next video is going to contain. There's multiple directions we could go from here since the body is now complete. Um, we could go into texturing, we could go into materials, we could go make the clothes, we could go into rigging. There's so much. So yeah, why not leave a comment? Tell me what you think, and I'll see you next time.